Hello, Ice and Fire Nerds. Once again, it's me, Jaime of House Hernandez, the Rican on the Wall. Today we're going to be reviewing Game of Thrones Episode 5, Eastwatch. Though this episode may not have been as action-packed as the Spoils of War, it still was an amazing episode. It laid down the foundational groundwork of what's going to happen in the future, and I'm super excited to see it. With that being said, let's jump right into it. First scene, we see Bronn pulling Jaime Lannister out of the Blackwater Rush. Jaime complains to him that he almost drowned him, when Bronn looked at him like he was a freaking idiot for taking on Drogon. Jaime basically says he wanted to end the war, and Bronn's like, "You didn't see the dragon?" Like none of us saw the dragon. Jaime then is in awe of how the Dothraki ran through their army like butter, and this was only one of Dany's dragons. Imagine what she can do with 3. Next we see Dany with Drogon and the Dothraki army, and what's left of the Lannister and Tarly army. Dany tells the defeated armies that she's not like Cersei, and she's not here to kill, but she does demand their loyalty. So she gives them an option: bend the knee or die. Most of the characters bend the knee, but there are 2 characters that stand out: Randall and Dickon Tarly. Randall says that he will not bend the knee to a foreign invader that came with savages. Tyrion pleads with him to bend the knee, and he refuses again. So Dany does what Dany does. She burns Randall and Dickon with dragon fire. Once that's done, the rest of the people fall in line. Next we find ourselves at Dragonstone, where Jon watches Dany arrive on top of Drogon. Drogon lands in front of Jon and approaches him and gives him a nice little scare, but Jon doesn't move. Next thing you know, we see the bond that we all knew was going to happen. Drogon allows Jon to pet him. This obviously shocks Dany, but we all know something that she doesn't, that Jon is a Targaryen, and Drogon knows it as well. Once Dany dismounts Drogon, she asks him, "Aren't they beautiful?" Which Jon replies with, "They're magnificent beasts." Dany then gives him the stink eye, which Jon corrects himself and says, "Of course they're beautiful." To Dany, they're more than beautiful. They're her children, and we all know that. Next, we're at Winterfell, where Bran wargs into a flock of ravens and heads them north of the wall. They cross over Eastwatch by the sea and continue their way north when they run into the army of the dead. Bran observes how large the army is until he runs into the Night King and his lieutenants. The Night King looks up and the ravens scatter. Next thing we know, Bran wakes up from the warg and tells Maester Luwin that he needs to send ravens south. Then after a few scenes, we head back to Dragonstone, where Jon receives Bran's letter. Jon is in disbelief that Arya and Bran are still alive. Dany asks, "Shouldn't you be happy?" Which Jon is, but Jon is more concerned with what else the letter entailed. Bran tells Jon that the Night King's army is heading south and heading towards Eastwatch by the sea. Jon insists that he has to go. Dany's like, "I haven't given you permission yet," where Jon then tells him he's a king and doesn't need anybody's permission. At which point Tyrion comes up with the idea that Jon should capture a white and bring it south so they can present it to Cersei and show that the threat is real. Jor volunteers for the mission, and Jon elects to lead the mission. Dany's like, "I haven't given you permission again." And once again, Jon tells Dany that he put his trust in her. Now it's her turn to put her trust in him. Tyrion then decides to go with Davos to King's Landing to try to talk to Jaime to barter this agreement. Next, we're back at Old Town, where Sam is working on scribing some scrolls, and Gilly is reading the events of Grand Maester Maynard. She goes over the different facts and figures that she finds fascinating. Next thing you know, she comes across a page where she asks Sam, "What is an annulment?" Sam explains that annulment is when a marriage is disavowed. Then she goes on to explain that Grand Maester Maynard did an annulment for Rhaegar Targaryen, and then a secret wedding ceremony in Dorne, and this solidifies the fact that Rhaegar married Lyanna and Jon is a legitimate Targaryen. Then we're back at King's Landing, where Bronn arranges a meeting between Jaime and Tyrion. Jaime is still furious that Tyrion killed Tywin, but Tyrion tried to justify his actions by explaining that Tywin never loved him. Jaime didn't want to hear it and asked Tyrion to get straight to the point, which he did, and told him about the Night King. Then over in the streets of Steel, Davos runs into an old friend, Gendry. He tells Gendry he needs him, and Gendry's all ready to go. He's explained to Davos that he's been waiting for this moment, and he knew he needed to get ready. He was tired of making steel for Lannister soldiers, the people that killed his family, and he's ready to do something. Davos explains about the Night King, and Gendry's ready to go. He's even got a warhammer, and it looks badass. Then we're at Dragonstone, where Davos is getting ready to introduce Gendry to Jon. Davos tells Gendry not to tell anyone who he is. And when he meets Jon, he tells him exactly who he is and disregards everything that Davos says. He explains that he wants to help Jon fight, and Jon wants to know, is he good with a sword. He says he's not good with a sword, but he's good with a hammer. Davos concurs, and Gendry joins the party. Then we go back up to Winterfell, where Arya Stark is spying on Littlefinger. She follows Littlefinger all across Winterfell, where he finally ends up back in his room. He speaks with the Maester and tells him that Sansa Stark thanks him for getting a letter. Once he leaves the room, Arya sneaks in and starts looking for the letter. She finds the letter hidden in his bed. The letter that she found was the letter that she was forced to write to Robb at season 1, explaining that Ned had betrayed Robert Baratheon and that she wants Robb to come to King's Landing to bend the knee. This infuriates Arya, and she leaves the room. Then you see Peter Baelish standing in the corner, and his plan is working perfectly. Finally, Jon and company arrive at Eastwatch, where they meet Tormund. They explain to Tormund that they need to head north of the wall, and why. Tormund looks at him like he's crazy and says, "You're not the only ones that want to go north of the wall." He then takes him to the dungeons of Eastwatch, where we see Beric Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr, and the Hound. Each one of these characters, for one reason or another, don't like each other, but they're all on the same side, the side of the living. So they decide to put aside their differences and head north. That concludes my episode 5 review. I think this episode is absolutely awesome. Stay tuned for later on this week for my episode 6 review, and then this weekend for my episode 7, the season finale predictions. Once again, I want to thank you so much for watching my video. Please leave some comments below, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you guys soon.